The most recent round of CFA exams just posted some of the highest pass rates that we've seen for either the level 1 or level 2 exams in a long time. The May 2023 level 1 CFA exam pass rate was 39%, and the May level 2 exam pass rate was 52%. More than half of the level 2 candidates cleared it. And that level 2 exam pass rate is especially optimistic if you're a future candidate, because if we ignore the 2020 exam sitting where very few candidates actually took the level 2 exam, then a 52% pass rate is the highest pass rate you've seen for this test since 2005, almost 20 years ago. So are the CFA exams getting easier? Or are candidates just much better prepared now? Let's look at it. Quick plug for myself. I've launched a CFA study program that I'm calling the Blueprint to Studying for the CFA Exams, which is a video course that details all of the processes that I followed along the way when I was preparing for my CFA exams, and these are the things that allowed me to pass each exam on the first attempt. The course gets into study strategies, how to mentally prepare for CFA studying, and many other things that I honestly feel like are more important than choosing what material you're going to study from. And I get into that in the intro video to this course, so please check it out in the link below. I know myself and maybe many of you were excited to see these higher pass rates posted recently for the last round of CFA exams. If you've been following this channel, you know that I've documented and talked about closely the extremely low pass rates that we've had for the better part of the last 3 years, certainly throughout 2021 and part of 2022. If you're someone who recently passed the CFA exam, I want to extend a huge congratulations to you. Please let me know about that in the comments down below on this video. I'd like to just give you a little applause and say, hey, great job. Nobody can really understand what a CFA candidate has to do to pass one of these exams other than someone who's actually done it. If you're a candidate who hasn't yet taken either the level 1 or the level 2 exam, then you should feel encouraged by this, because yes, the Institute is going to say that they always set a consistent standard that a just or a minimally qualified candidate should be able to hit to progress to the next level of the CFA program, and that is all likely very true, but numbers don't lie. And when we see the pass rates getting higher and higher and higher, like I'm a realist. Statistically, that's just going to mean that on average, everyone signing up for the next sitting of the level 1 CFA exam or the next level 2 exam, you are going to have a statistically higher chance of becoming a CFA charter holder if these exams maintain relatively higher pass rates. This is generally good news. But as always, the true indication around if these exams are actually getting easier to pass isn't just going to be the overall pass rate. It's going to be that in combination with the minimum passing score. Because if the minimum passing score was extremely low and 52% of people passed the level 2 exam, maybe that means it was a relatively hard exam and way more people than that should have passed it. And the opposite can also be true if the minimum passing score is extremely high. So we only get estimates. They're from 300hours.com. Here's what those minimum passing scores look like. Based on the statistical analysis that 300hours.com does, they show that the level 1 May 2023 exam had a relatively high minimum passing score. It's the same level it was at in February of this year of 69%. That is to say, you probably need to have gotten 70% of the questions right to pass this thing, which if you've ever taken a CFA exam, you know a lot of the questions are tough. That's a really high mark. Most surprisingly, or maybe you could say most impressively, and this is the real shocker to me on this, the minimum passing score estimate for the May 2023 level 2 CFA exam was way, way high. They show it as probably being also 70%. Now, not only is that tied for the second highest minimum passing score that anyone has ever needed to clear a level 2 exam, but it's also, if you've ever seen a practice question for the level 2 exam or taken the level 2 exam, it's just so surprising to me that an exam that much more difficult than the level 1 exam is going to carry the same minimum passing score. If the Institute is really being consistent year after year after year in setting what a minimally qualified, or I think what they call a just qualified candidate can do, then for the level 2 exam to have the exact same minimum passing score as the level 1 exam, and we know that the questions on the level 2 exam are far more detailed in most cases and much more difficult, then that means that the Institute is holding a really, really, really high standard for what a candidate needs to know and be able to answer correctly to move on to the level 3 exam. For such a high minimum passing score estimate to be posted. And for the basically highest pass rate for the level 2 exam in almost the last 20 years, I have to say, and this is the first time I've taken this angle in this argument, it seems to me like this round of level 2 candidates was probably the most impressive or best prepared on average bunch of level 2 candidates that we've ever seen before. It just makes sense logically. If the minimum passing score is a lot higher, then typically you see the pass rate a bit lower. Now there is also the chance that the difference was just that the question writers wrote much relatively easier questions on this level 2 exam compared to level 2 exam settings of the past. There may be some piece of that to this equation. I'm sure it's a little bit of all those things, but we're not seeing the blame game from the CFA Institute like they did in the end of 2020, saying, well, candidates just aren't very well prepared anymore because of the pandemic. We're not seeing them come out and say the exact opposite of that, like, wow, candidates are far better prepared now. So there probably is some element of relatively easier questions, but then they raise the minimum passing score, so you have to at least be, up to that standard to pass this thing. It's really impressive to see what candidates have done here recently. And almost certainly the next round of the CFA exams are going to see higher than 50, 60, maybe even 70% pass rates, because most candidates are going to have enrolled in my course on the blueprint to mastering your CFA study plan. So everyone's going to be passing exams left and right. Seriously though, I want to again say congratulations to everyone who cleared this thing. I'm really excited to see what this group of candidates does on the next level 3 exam. As we sort of track these things throughout the years, especially since the pandemic, I'm going to sort of keep this group of current or now almost level 3 candidates, if they have enrolled in the next exam, in the back of mind and say, okay, how's that group doing? If you're someone who still has CFA exams to register for in the future, or if you have never taken one yet at all, like I mentioned, this is encouraging for a few different reasons. Yes, you're going to have to put in a lot of time and effort. Obviously, all those things are going to be true that I have talked about, but the reality is going to remain that if the level 1 exam can get a 40% pass rate and the level 2 can hold over a 50 and the level 3 can be over 50, that's a much better chance than especially what we saw 2 years ago, where just statistically for someone to get through all 3 levels on their first attempts would have been less than like a 3% probability. That's not an encouraging program to take part of. Because of all of this, I'm hopeful that we will actually see participation in the CFA program start to rise again. Now, shifting gears a bit, if you haven't heard some of the conversations around CFA exam participation rates in the last 6 months, you can go back and check some of those things out. Mark Meldrum's talked about it. I have, the Institute has. They've been down. Long story short, participation rates have been down. And I can't speak for any of those other outlets, but I know for my own YouTube channel and the comments I get on different videos covering this topic, I see time and time again that people are literally discouraged about how low the pass rates have gotten, or just how high the amount of study or how high the standard really is to become a CFA charter holder now, which some people say is a lot higher than it was when the Institute first started. I kind of think that's a good thing if it's true. But anyway, all of these things lead candidates or potential candidates to not want to have to try to pursue this thing. And some of that is laziness, and some of the people in the comments are probably the type of people who complain about a lot of things. But for that to be the general sentiment, I don't want to say overwhelming sentiment, but more often than not, I'm seeing that people are discouraged by what they're seeing and what's coming out from the results of these exams. All of this is to say, hopefully if these things can trend in a more positive direction, either because candidates are getting better prepared or because the Institute may be offering actually better prep material through the new packages they're doing with their online studying, or the questions are written in a more relevant way, not necessarily easier all the time, but a more relevant way either to the material of the CFA curriculum or more relevant to what people are actually going to have to do in the real world, which then could encourage people to want to study that material more. I just feel optimistic about the direction of this thing. We can't exactly see what the enrollment rates are, but on the CFA subreddit page, they post surveys where people respond to and give their results. And so you can get a general idea of where enrollment or participation in the exams is compared to prior years, and it's been down. I hope that all of this relatively good news has things trending in a positive direction. I like to share messages to those of you who potentially failed this recent round of CFA exams. Again, most level 1 candidates failed, so if you're in that camp, it can be extremely difficult. I can't tell you that I know how I would have tried to process that, and everyone's going to have to handle that differently. Now, if you only studied for 50 hours, maybe it's not all that terrible of an outcome. If you studied for 500 hours and you failed, I can't imagine what that would be like. Check out a couple videos on my channel that apply to this topic specifically, but I would encourage you to rest on this. Don't make any decisions right away. I always say this: if you fail the CFA exam, don't make a decision on it within the first week or even month of that result, unless you really need to enroll in the next one quickly for whatever reason. Make the decision on if you want to pursue this program later, when the emotional trough has kind of passed and you're clearly thinking about what you want for your career, for your next 2 to 3 years, and really for your life ultimately, because it's a big deal. And if you can listen to some other advice or people talk about this, including myself, on these different topics, and that helps you inform your opinion one way or the other, give it some time. So I feel for you, especially if you're like band 9 or 10. I don't even want to talk about that. Give it some time is all the advice I can give to you now. For everyone else who did pass, enjoy it. Congratulations. Prepare very well for your next CFA exam. We don't have another level 3 exam. They're still doing that, I think, twice a year for a little while. So you have a bit of time to relax and prepare for that before you prepare for that if you need to. As always, thanks for watching this video. Like the Anyway, I'm just going to cut it off there. See ya.